Okay, and I think we'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
First, thank you everyone for joining this informational webinar regarding homeschools, or homeschooling, and pods. You know, those are options now. We're all seeing the mandates and everything in our schools, and parents are wanting to take to look for other options when it comes to homeschooling or starting pods in our area. And even teachers are looking to starting pods or help with homeschool as well. So that's gives all of us parents peace of mind. The webinar will be recorded, but none of the attendees will be shown on the recording at all. So nobody can see anyone right now, and you will not be shown on the recording. Please feel free to ask any questions in the chat, or there's a little Q&A. You can ask questions or have comments in there as well. But first, I wanted to introduce our panelist, Heather. We have Heather, if you want to wave, Heather.
Hi.
She is from Celebration Education. And then we have Windi, and she's from Homeschool Concierge and Homeschool Network. And then we have Maria. Hi, Maria. And she is from Soaring Minds. So thank you all again. Let me I was going to put this link in there really quick, but if you want to go ahead and start, we can go ahead and start now. Thank you.
So the first myth we want to bust is that homeschooling is illegal in California. And I do hear this a lot, and I think it's because homeschooling is not technically legal in California as such, but there are actually about 5 different ways that you can legally homeschool your children in California. The first is by filing that private school affidavit that we just talked about. And homeschool families, when they file that, they're in essence claiming their home as a private school, and they are the admin and the teacher in that private school, and their children are the students in that private school. Another way to homeschool kind of privately is to join what's called the private school satellite program, or a PSP. And what these typically are is a longtime homeschool parent files the private school affidavit on behalf of a group of families, and they will keep your records. And there's usually a fee associated to being part of this. Some of them are larger and maybe hosted at a church, and they might offer classes and social activities and things like that, but you're paying a fee to be part of that, but they're keeping your records for you. And then there's also kind of a loophole in the compulsory education law, and that is if you are a credentialed teacher yourself, or you hire a credentialed teacher to teach your child, then you don't have to file the private school affidavit. That's considered a form of educating your child. Now, the homeschool associations don't suggest this form of homeschooling. They would rather you go ahead and file that private school affidavit, because then there are specified things that you have to track and keep records for, that then you have proof that you've been homeschooling your child. If you're using kind of the loophole, you wouldn't necessarily have the proof you need if they decide to go back to a public district school. And then the rest of the ways are kind of public homeschooling paths. And one of those is like a non-classroom based charter school, where you would enroll in a charter school that matches you to a teacher. And then you work with that teacher to choose curriculum and enrichment activities for your student. Another option is through a district or a county office of ed independent study program. And these are similar to our non-classroom based charters, where you're matched with a teacher and you follow the state standards. Kind of the main difference in my mind is that with a district run program, you're tied to the curriculum that the district adopts. In a non-classroom based charter school, you actually can help select the curriculum. It just has to be secular, no religious curriculum. Did I forget them? Did I forget any of them, Heather?
That sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So homeschooling is legal, just not as such. Not forward. Oh, okay. Maria, do you want to talk to us about the myth homeschooled children are weird and unsocialized?
Yes, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Okay. And yes, I'm in the car because I'm at a birthday party and the birthday party's going on over there and I'm in the car right now. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the party later. So there's one thing that is one of the biggest questions homeschool families get. Like, are my kids going to be weird? Are they going to be isolated? How are they going to socialize? And we have to think about one thing, that when they are 5 years old, they are put in a classroom. And for the next 13 years, they are with the same demographic, the same age, same everything for the next 13 years. That is not what real society is at all. Then they turn 18, they go to college again, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Again, their whole world is only people the exact same age, the exact same everything, right? They're doing the same activities, they're learning the same thing. They are going through these same experiences for almost 20 years. And in society, that's not what really is like. When you graduate college, graduate high school, and you go get a career, you get a job, you work with people who are 20, 40, 60 years old. You go to the grocery store and you see people all over different ages and backgrounds. You go to the post office. That's what real society is. When you're out in society, that's what socialization really looks like. So when people think, is my child going to be isolated? Is he going to be weird because he's going to be alone? No, homeschoolers are hardly ever home. We're out 3 or 4 days a week, out in society, meeting people. We have all kinds of field trips with all kinds of different families. We have career days where we go talk to different people who have interesting careers that our kids want to learn about. I take my kids to the grocery store and they're talking to people there. One of the things that I have my kids do when they're about maybe 8, 9 years old, I go to the grocery store, maybe like 9 or 10, and I give them a list. And they go into the grocery store by themselves and they come out with iceberg lettuce instead of cabbage. But you know what? That builds character because they have to go back in and exchange it and come back. Little things like that public school kids do not have the skills to do. A lot of public school kids cannot talk to an adult because they're not used to talking to adults. They're only used to talking kids their age doing the exact same thing. So that is a huge myth, could not be further from the truth. We are out in society all over the place, just like it was less than 100 years ago before our kids were placed on an assembly line, Henry Ford style. So no, that's not at all the reality at all.
I always kind of joke that children in school are institutionalized and our children that are homeschooled are socialized. So yes. I definitely agree with you, Maria, on that one.
Yes, the truth.
All right, Heather, I believe this one's you.
Sure. Myth number 3, homeschooling requires too much screen time. So this really comes out of the lockdowns. During the lockdowns, all the kids went home and they were forced to learn on computers. There are homeschoolers who do all of their learning online, but majority of homeschoolers do not. We recognize that kids need to move and that children learn better when they're actively and physically involved in the learning process, and that learning can happen anytime, anywhere. It doesn't have to look like a classroom. It doesn't have to look like curriculum. It can be learning through, touching real things and talking to people with real experience in these things. I mean, when the lockdowns first happened, I was like excited. I'm like, yes, finally, everyone's going to learn how to learn outside of the classroom, because I love learning outside the classroom. It's so much more dynamic. But then I was so disappointed when they went and stuck all the kids on computers. I was just like, really? Are you really going to do that to kids? Because it's just such a dead way to learn. So I encourage families to move through, learn through movement, interaction, experiencing, exploring, experimenting, things that don't happen when you're sitting in front of a computer. There's just an entire world out there, and we don't want to limit kids. So yes, you can do all your learning on a computer, but most homeschoolers do not.
I think that's so true, Heather. I think we actually spend less time on a screen because we're so busy out in the world doing our activities. But it always makes me think of when you did the whole crafting a country theme, and you did it on Minecraft, and the kids loved being on there with their friends, and it was once a week for like maybe an hour, and it was an awesome program. So they did love learning on the screen, but that wasn't the main thing that Heather offered through her program. There was field trips every week, and there was also 2 days a week of an actual class with the kids getting together. So
we're actually doing crafting a country again this year.
Yay, it's a great one.
Yeah.
All right, so this one is mine. Myth number 4, I'm not qualified to teach my kids. So I think that this is actually something that like society puts in our mind, because if you think about it, when your baby is born, who's the first person teaching them everything they need to know from age 0 up till 5 years old when they go to school? We are kind of socialized into thinking that, oh, I have to now give my child over to the state and let them educate them because I can't teach them these things. And that's simply not true. When my oldest son was little and he's like about the age to be starting, you know, preschool and those things, he was super shy, didn't talk. And so I taught him sign language. I didn't know sign language. I learned it right along with him. And, you know, he learned a ton of signs and could communicate with people and let us know what he needed. And I taught him that. No one else taught him that. It was just me. So I just feel like as homeschool parents, even if we feel like we're not qualified to teach something, we either get the professional help that we need through vendors and tutors, learning centers like Heather and Maria's, or we learn it right along with our kids. There's nothing I love more than learning along with my kids, things that they're interested in, things that I'm interested in, things that are required for high school graduation. So I don't believe for one second that any of us is not qualified to teach our children.
Well, and the truth is, you know your child better than anybody else ever will.
Right.
They're the teacher, they can't know your child as well as you. You know their needs. You can help them. At one-on-one is so much more powerful than a crowded classroom. So you'll be fine. You'll do great.
Totally.
And I think in addition to that is, I'm a California credentialed teacher. I used to be a public school teacher. I taught high school English and Spanish, and the credential program is designed more to teach teachers how to manage a classroom, how to manage behavior, how to do lesson planning, all these other things that are required in an institution. So it's not really teaching teachers how to teach, how to personalize learning, how to individualize lesson plans, because there's no possible way to do that in a classroom. But so they don't come out knowing how to teach your child. They know how to manage your child and how to manage a classroom, but you're number one because you know your child best. So that's not big myth for sure.
And I forgot to mention also that if it gets where your child is in a course so advanced that you're like, I don't understand this, I can't teach this, they can enroll in a community college and take classes there. My middle schooler who's 13 and my oldest who's a senior this year, they're both doing community college classes together because they wanted to study something that I don't know how to teach. So there's always that option too. So don't let anyone tell you you're not qualified, because you are. And if there's something that you're not confident in, you can go ahead and get the support that you need. All right. This one is Maria. Only the wealthy can afford to homeschool their children.
Oh, that one's dear to my heart. Okay. So we started homeschooling maybe about 10, 12 years ago. And we have 5 kids. We had one income, and it was just a sacrifice that we chose to make. You know, I was teaching regular school, but I just realized that my kids, that wasn't the best setting for them. You know, I wanted an alternative setting for them. So we took the plunge, and homeschooling is super affordable. It can be as affordable as free, completely free. I have 5 kids, like I said, that we're homeschooling. I have my oldest 17 who just graduated, and we spend about $300 a year total on all our curriculum, all of it. And hardly any of it is online. We do one thing, sometimes like a little math program online, but almost all of it is either audiobooks. We have the Libby app. There's so many resources that are free or super affordable. There's also ways that you can collaborate with other families. Like, for example, I have always taught language arts and history, and I have friends who teach art, and I have friends who do other things. So we barter. Hey, if you teach my kids art, I will help them with language arts. You know, there's a million different ways to make homeschooling super affordable. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money at all. It doesn't even have to cost anything, but it does take creativity, ingenuity, and a sense of like building community for your family for sure to make this all happen and to get those resources, get informed. But it's super affordable.
Totally. It's not moving to the next one. Oh, there we go. Okay, Heather.
Okay, so the myth is that homeschool kids don't have access to sports and dances. Actually, what's interesting about homeschooling is you can pick and choose kids do. Like, for example, a child who is a professional athlete actually spends more time in sports than most kids do. But that's because that's their focus, and they even spend more time doing sports than they do school, and that's okay, and that's the choice of the family. But also, I know when it comes into play more, because we all know about community sports, Little League and this kind of thing for younger kids, but though it's really more as a teenager that it gets harder for homeschool students to participate in sports. And there are some organizations that offer sports for all ages, and so they're out there, but it's not, to be honest, it is not the same as your local school and they going to compete against other schools and that sort of thing. I do have friends who put their kids in school, their kids who want to play high school sports, they go into high school just so that they can play the sports, because there's just not enough homeschoolers to create the leagues and so forth to be able to compete like they do. So that's something to weigh out, but there definitely are sports opportunities if you look for them. And then as far as dances go, well, this is actually a picture of my son and his, at the time, girlfriend. This was several years ago. My kids, they went to school dances, well, homeschool dances all the time. It's always been put on by volunteers, moms who want to make that happen for their own kids. And so they put together these dances, and my kids loved them. They would go there with friends, and they made friends there. This girl that my son was seeing for a couple years, he met her at a high school homeschool dance. And so it can happen. And if there's not one near you, or you don't like the dances that other people are putting on, you just go ahead and make a dance. We'd be happy, any of us would be happy to help you promote your dance, because it helps the whole entire community when anytime somebody puts on a dance. So and they actually haven't been happening since COVID. They're about ready to start up again. So that's what I've got for. Did you want to add something, Maria?
Yeah, so real quick, so my older kids, 17, 16, and 13, all of them have been playing soccer since they were 4 or 5 years old. They played, like you said, like with the rec league first, and then played with another team, and now they play club. And that goes, and my 16-year-old, he plays with all the local high school kids. And all the kids that are in 10th and 11th grade, he plays with them. They all go to high school. He's homeschooled. It's not a big deal. He plays, he does practice 3 days a week. He has travel ball. He has games all over, sometimes in different states, different counties. My 9-year-old, he plays tennis, and he has other homeschool friends that he goes to, and that's on Saturday mornings. We have a friend here who rides a BMX, and he has like sponsors. He's like 15 or 16, and he's on a team. And a friend of mine whose son just graduated, a friend of my 17-year-old, he's playing semi-pro hockey in Atlanta right now. He just left like last month. Wow. And he's been playing hockey since he was 10. Homeschool did not inhibit him from playing any really, really good sports. And in fact, my 16-year-old is trying out for the community college soccer team next term, because he's a community college student and he's good enough. He thinks he's good enough to go try out. So that's another option. So there's a ton of options available for sure. My little 5-year-old does dance, and she does it on Wednesday mornings, so there's a ton of stuff.
I just remembered one other thing that some families do is they have their kids go to a private school just for sports. So then they can continue homeschooling during the high school years. And some private schools are big enough to compete with other schools as well.
Right.
So that's an option.
Yeah, lots of options. All right, so myth number 7 is there are too many state requirements for classes and curriculum. And I have actually been getting a lot of calls from families when they're trying to withdraw their students from the district school that they have been in. The school office is telling them that they have to be part of a program that is accredited, or that they have to be using accredited curriculum. And that is just simply not true. The only requirement is stated in the law is that your school must offer instruction in the courses commonly taught in California public schools, which would be language arts, math, science, and social studies. So you don't need to believe any of those things that people are trying to tell you as you're pulling your children out of school. You are free to design your child's education if you're homeschooling privately through the PSA or a PSP. Now, if you join a charter school or an independent study program through a district or county office of ed, there's going to be requirements to follow, the Common Core and to test and those types of things. But for private filing homeschoolers, there's no restrictions on what you teach and what curriculum you use. Want to add anything, ladies?
That's good.
Woohoo, I did it. No.
I think one nice thing, well, one of the most incredible things about it is that while there are certain a certain list of things that you have to check off, for a high school diploma, that
Right.
those requirements can be met in a variety of ways.
Yes.
It needs to be, for example, 2 years of math. I have a boy, one of my sons, who's has a math aversion. Okay, so he took a really great business math class that he enjoyed, an economics class, an accounting class, things like that are going to be useful for him, maybe in his career, life skills, that he can meet requirements that are, by the state in a way that suits him and more personalized to what his goals are. So that's one thing to consider. Yes, there are some requirements, but you're free to meet those requirements in a variety of ways.
Yeah, and that's for like California high school graduation requirements, but that does not apply to, say, your first grader through your 8th grader. Right.
But also, if you file independently, you can get to decide what the requirements for graduation are. It may not include 2 years of high school math. That's up to you. But of course, a lot of colleges expect at least 2 years of math. So that's what you want to consider when you're doing it with your kids. But you as an independent filer, you can make those decisions yourself.
Totally. All right, here we go. So I can't work and homeschool at the same time. Maria, this is you.
Okay. So I work full time. I have 5 kids, and my husband works full time. We both work full time. Now, it does take a lot of creativity. It does take some juggling. The beauty of it is that you are not required to do school at a certain time, on a certain day, at a certain place. So you're free to work around your schedule with this. So sometimes, I have long commutes. I have an hour commute almost every day, and we're doing audiobooks in the car for language arts, and we're making sure that that's being done and we're using our time wisely. I do school Monday, Friday, and Saturday with my kids mostly because those are the days that I'm home. On the other days, we do school, but a more hands-on way outdoors. That's just the way that it works for us. But every family has a different situation, different resources available, different schedules for the both parents who work or one parent. So it's all about personalizing what works for you. Also, another thing that is important is to build community with like-minded parents that are already around you. Some people, it could be with sports moms, sports dads that know each other, church, different activities your kids do, maybe in the schools that you're already at that you're thinking about leaving. Build community with those people that are already in your circle and say, hey, I work Monday through Thursday. You have Fridays off. Would you, I have Fridays off. I'll take the kids that day and I'll teach them this. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You just have to do what works for you and your family. Remember that it doesn't have to be done 8 to 2 like a regular school. It also doesn't have to be done by June. You can school year round and finish whatever you want to finish, whatever you want to accomplish year round. Take the summer off or take 2 weeks off for Christmas. Do whatever you want. as long as you get done what you feel is appropriate for your school year, then you're fine. You have full freedom to schedule it, whatever works around for your family.
Yep, 100%. All right, Heather, you're myth 9.
Myth 9, homeschoolers don't learn as much as traditionally schooled students. This myth has been around for a long time. I remember back when, I mean, my kids are all grown by now, but back when one of my kids he was probably about 7 years old. There was a kid at church that used to really harass him because he's like, oh, you're homeschooled, you don't know anything. And would just, I mean, he'd say this to him like every week. And then come to find out that kid didn't even know how to read. So it's like, okay, my kid learned how to read when he was 4. I don't know what you're talking about. So, but it's a myth that is not a kind myth. The truth, schoolers can learn as much as they want to. And they often do. The cool thing is that when kids are homeschooled, they not only learn, but they learn how to learn, and then they learn to like learning, and then they often want to learn more. And this is when they're learning through, like Maria was talking about, the hands-on approach, where they're doing things that are exciting to them and they want to learn and know more about. And they just kind of take off with the subject and go with it. And it's a really exciting, let's see my notes. Yeah, because when kids are in a crowded classroom, there's really not a lot of the amount of learning that happens in a classroom is really not very much. You can, if you spend just an hour and a half a day with your kids doing like all the academic stuff, in an hour and a half a day, you can get more done than the kids do sitting in a crowded classroom, because you can give them one-on-one attention. The work is more effective, more powerful, and they can learn faster because you can help them right when they struggle. You don't have to wait for the teacher, maybe or maybe not, come around and help your child in the classroom. So it's really very powerful. And then on top of that, after they've spent the hour and a half doing the, reading, writing, and math stuff, they can do other things that help them excel, like the sports, like the arts, and these sort of things that really help build brain power for the kids and help them even become better students in that hour and a half that you spend with them with the academics. So you really have the opportunity to help them be more advanced. And the thing is I don't like comparing one kid against another or comparing kids to the standards. And what I mean by advances is for that child, that I believe that every child has what I call genius, that they have abilities that are theirs, that are their interests and their abilities that are different from anybody else's. And that when they have the opportunity to work within their genius, they just excel. And then, all these other subjects, they come along and they can be worked into their genius. But I mean, you really don't need to hold them back. You don't have to treat them like a public school. You can let them thrive in a much more natural and normal way. So they have so many opportunities to learn more.
I actually think that our children, when left to their own devices, even learn even more, because there was about 3 years ago, we had kind of a family emergency and I was at the hospital every day, all day long for 3 months. And my children taught themselves all kinds of amazing things because they were basically left to fend for themselves while I was at the hospital and Joshua was working from home. And so I always think, well, at that time in my life, I'm like, well, even though I felt like I was failing as a homeschool mom, I actually at least didn't, like, in our experience, I didn't kill their love of learning. And so when they were left all to themselves, I mean, they were not like left all by themselves, they were being fed and everything, but they explored and learned the things that they were interested in. And then when I was home again, they taught me all these amazing things that they had figured out and learned on their own. So our children are constantly always learning. You literally can't stop them from learning. So, right.
One time I was having a conversation with my son and I don't remember what the subject was. And I asked him, I said, what did your friends say about that? Or what was their opinion? He's like, oh, they don't know anything. They go to school. So.
Right. Maria, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, but no, you guys covered everything. It's perfect.
Okay.
I love
All right,
it.
we'll
I
go
love
on
it.
to myth number 10, I think is me. So only religious people homeschool. I don't know that this has ever been true. So I know a long time ago when homeschooling wasn't legal or there was no specified path for how you homeschool, that it was a number of Christian homeschoolers that fought to give us the path of filing the private school affidavit. But as long as I've been homeschooling, there's people of all religions, people of no religions, everybody homeschools. And now coming through COVID and the school distance learning and now the mandates, there's no, I don't think there's any way to stereotype what a homeschool family looks like. So this is just not true at all. Anyone have anything to add?
Oh, it's good.
All right. Myth number 11, Maria. Can you see it? It says homeschooling doesn't prepare children for life. I forgot you're in the car.
No, I just had to switch over. Okay. Homeschool. You know what? That's actually perfect because I was thinking about that on the last question and I didn't
Right.
want to talk about it. So it's perfect. So one thing that I did personally that I have as an example 5 years ago when I was pregnant with baby number 5, I knew that I was going to be down for the count for at least 2 or 3 weeks, you know, when the baby came. And I had 4 boys, like all 12 and under or something. And I made sure, I had always made sure from the beginning, but I made sure that they knew how to make at least 5 breakfasts, right? Make oatmeal in the morning, make eggs and, you know, whatever, and just bean burritos, something. 5 breakfasts because I knew that I was going to be like not available to them every single morning when they were hungry and then they wanted second breakfast at 9 o'clock and all this stuff. So it's like, those are the kind of things that are learned. You know, there's a lot of, there's a big myth of, you know, homeschool kids don't learn that much or they don't learn everything they're supposed to learn. There's also the idea that homeschool kids learn way more than public school kids in life skills also. Yes, they learn all the academics, of course, but in life skills, that is something that that's not addressed. And, you know, I'm making sure my kids know how to balance a checkbook and open a checking account and do grocery shopping, make a budget, you know, clean the house, do chores, do all these things that they're going to need when they move out and be productive citizens, you know, just productive members of society. So there's all these other things that need to be learned that the schools lack because they're so busy, you know, marking, checking off boxes, trying to meet standards, doing lesson plans, all these things. They forget. You know, I had to teach my 9-year-old the other day how to iron his pants. Like he thought he could go out in these pants that were super wrinkled. And that would not be something that they would teach in a regular school, but that's still a skill that he needs to have. So there's definitely different, you know, a lot of different ways that homeschool parents prepare their children. Last year, when everything got shut down and my kids had extra time because we weren't out, they each opened a bank account for investing and they watched a lot of videos, they read a bunch of books, and they each started investing. Like 6 in the morning, I'd go into the kitchen table and my 15-year-old was there like day trading, you know, and it was something that he learned because we had time and it was a skill that I wanted them to learn. You know, they go to different seminars with us for different investing and they have people skills. It's like, you know, customer service skills because we deal with the public, we deal with families, we deal with children. They have a ton of volunteer opportunities. They do a ton of sports. They do all kinds of things because they have time. When my kids were in regular school, get up at 5 in the morning, iron their uniforms, pack their lunches that they're going to throw out anyways because they don't eat half of it, and drive them to across town to the good school, and then get all the dirty looks from the moms because I was 10 minutes late, you know, in the drop-off circle, and then leave them, go home, get some stuff done, and pick them up again at 3 o'clock. What did you learn? Nothing. That was always the answer. What did you learn? Nothing. It was boring. This guy did this and this guy did that. And then throw a granola bar, get to soccer, get to this, get to that, get home. Hopefully we have time for dinner, bedtime. That was the cycle that we were in for years. And now it's like, now we have time to focus on all the things that really matter. We do academics, but we also prepare them for real life in society on their own to be productive citizens. And that's something that's lacking in the regular public schools. That's why we have so many 18-year-olds who don't have these life skills, who can't fill out a resume or fill out a job application. They don't know what they want to study in college. Why? Because the last 4 years, they haven't given an opportunity to explore their interests or their passions, or meet people that have different careers and see what they might like, internships, all these different ways to educate and prepare them for life, for sure, that homeschoolers do get.
Right. Well, and our children learn so much just from watching us. And the more they're with us, watching us take care of these day-to-day life things that we have to take care of, they're learning how to do those things. So you don't even necessarily have to sit down with them and have a conversation with them about how to do something, because they're seeing you do it every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to the bank, and they're with you. So yeah. Did you have more to add, Heather?
Nope, that's good.
Oh. Heather, this one's you. Homeschoolers
Okay.
can't get into college.
So actually the opposite is true. If a homeschooler wants to go to college, they can customize their entire high school experience for the purpose of going to college. Not only college, but if they have an idea of what colleges they want to apply to, they can look at the requirements to enter that college, and they can customize their high school experience specifically for the colleges that they want to go to. So, but not only that, like Windi said, a lot of homeschoolers start college early. Her boys have, and my older two did. And they can, you know, sometimes it's only personal interest. Sometimes it's academics that you can't teach them. Like if they want to do high school math, they can actually do high school math at college and get both high school and college credit for it at the same time, which is incredible and saves you money, because like some of my friends have had kids that graduate from high school with an AA degree from their local community college, and then they can go on to their other, you know, finish other somewhere else. But I do have two of my kids have graduated from college by now, and you know, they did it. They got in, they did well, and they graduated. So it is very possible. But like I said, if you want to do that, that's the way, that's the path that you put them on. You have to recognize what the requirements are. Like, for example, those 2 or more years of high school math that you want to make sure are there if the college is going to require that for you. So, and also colleges tend to like homeschoolers because homeschoolers learn to like learning, and they tend to be self-starters. And so colleges know that these are kids who are serious about learning, who take initiative and will do it themselves, or don't need to be held by the hand because they're accustomed to learning and studying and doing all of that. So, yeah, you can definitely go to college. Also, just to say, if you're homeschooling independently, you're not a credentialed, you're not a, what is that word? Not credentialed, accredited. Right. You're not an accredited school. And so you would be considered, for most colleges, you'd be considered a homeschooler, and you create a portfolio, which you can make a very impressive portfolio if they don't have to spend all day on academics, and they can do things that will look very impressive on a portfolio. But also, if you are with a charter school, those are all accredited, and so as for all intents and purposes, the colleges that you're applying to would know that they, I mean, it'd be just like graduating from a local public school, because they're accredited school and they're a public school. Colleges may not even know the difference. So if you went that route, you would have that safety net if you choose to do it that way. I didn't. We went independent.
I just want to say real fast, we're almost to the pod sideway. I think we only have 2 more of these. And I just wanted to add one more thing about going to community college. My kids were taking 2 courses each for the last semester, and it only cost us $36 because they're actual units they don't have to pay for because they are still in high school and middle school. So that's another bonus. It's free. All right, myth number 13 is I'm not capable of teaching my kids. I hear a lot of parents saying, oh, I'm not patient enough to teach my kids, or I don't know all the subjects. We kind of already talked about what you do when you don't know the subjects, but I also think it's important to realize that you maybe don't feel like you have the patience to teach, because right now you're kind of living in that rat race that Maria was talking about, where you're running to make sure everyone gets breakfast, then they get to school, then they do homework, then they go to their sports, then you try and get dinner on the table. So your patience is a lot thinner than if you then give up running that rat race and you stay home and you start educating your children, and you're like embarking on this learning lifestyle where you're just enjoying the process of learning together, and there's not all of that stress of running all around. So you will have the patience once you get out of the model that you're living right now with your education system. Did we already do this one? Yes, we did. Okay. Homeschooling makes kids lazy. Heather.
Okay, so I mean, if you just plain let your kids go and sit around and playing games all day, maybe. But you know, I mean, as a caring parent, we don't like our kids sitting around all day. We know that bodies are made to move, that children learn better when they are actively involved. So, oh, I have some notes. So kids who are in a traditional school are constantly being told exactly what they are supposed to do. You know, you do this, then this, and then this, and this. You don't have a lot of choices. You don't have a lot of options. So the truth is, once they finally have time to themselves, they don't even know what to do with themselves a lot of time, or they're so exhausted they can't do it much, if anything. But kids who are homeschooled, a lot of times they have a lot more options. They have a lot more flexibility, and they're more likely to be in charge of their own lives and making their own choices. And if we give them lots of opportunities for making good choices, you know, these types of experiences where they can really apply themselves, then they're more likely to be actively involved in things and want to be actively involved in things and be far less nonchalant. So they can read as long as they want. I mean, some kids would choose to read all day long. They can research more, they can work on projects for longer. There's a lot of opportunities for kids to not be lazy, unless you let them sit on the computer all day. That does happen with some families, just saying.
Great. All right, so now we're going to talk about how to form pods. And I believe, Heather, you were going to start.
Okay, so I saw some questions already. I think I'll just go ahead and answer some of the questions. Like somebody asked, can you run a pod from your home? So that's what's interesting is, I mean, it's a kind of a loaded question, but you can, and it might depend on, like, for example, a lot of families are trying to avoid the vaccine requirements, but as it is right now, private schools, full-time private schools are supposed to have the vaccines for them as well. But if you're running a part-time school, it is those requirements are not there, and you also, if I were you, I wouldn't even make it, if you're running it out of your home, I wouldn't even have you file the private school affidavit for your kids and the kids that come into your home. But what I would do is I would have each family file their own affidavit. And then if you're coming together in your home, you know, a couple times a week, then it's each of them have their own responsibility, and you don't have to worry about it being at your home as far as being a school, because in a lot of cities they have requirements. Like if you're running a school, you know, a school that's open to the public, then, you know, where you're accepting money and so forth, there has to be certain things in place, like a bathroom a certain size, a certain amount of indoor and outdoor square foot per student. And there's a lot of legalities there. That's why I would probably recommend, if you're going to run a pod, do it part-time, and do it, and if it's run from a home, that you just go ahead and have each family file their own private school affidavit.
Maria, did you have more to add?
So pods can be run anywhere. So in San Diego, my family and I, we have 3,000 families in our group. we don't meet with the 3,000 families every week, but we have 15 pods all around San Diego already formed, and they meet throughout the county. So it's the same location every week that the parents choose when they sign up, and they're not doing 5 days a week, they're doing 2 days a week, like Heather was explaining. But it's nice because they get to build community, build friendships, socialize with the same group of kids every week, 2 days a week, and it's outdoors. So on Tuesdays, we meet at Balboa Park. On Wednesdays, we meet at the Safari Park, and we do science, ASL, language arts, all kinds of stuff there. It's totally drop off, and then parents pick up in the afternoon. So, and it's been a lot of collaboration with other moms who used to be educators, other parents who used to be educators, local educators who don't have children, but maybe they're retired, or different people who are still working. Like, for example, we have a lot of scientists that we work with that do science labs for us. And they're all part of the pod, so it just depends what you want it to look like, but it can be anywhere, whatever meets the needs of your group of people.
Right. I think the important thing to remember is that you're not filing that private school affidavit for a group of families and then meeting, because if you're filing it for a group of families and meeting full-time, you're a full-time private school, and there's all kinds of requirements that now apply to you, and so do those vaccine requirements. So that's what you want to avoid. Let's see. Okay, so in the question, there's questions here in the question and answer. So what are the legalities of starting a micro school as a business? Can you do it from home? So is that the one you already answered?
Yeah, that's one.
Okay. How do we get IEP supports when homeschooling? So there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can homeschool through like a charter school or a non-classroom based program at a district or county office of ed. Or technically, if you file the private school affidavit and you are you're your own private school, your home district is legally supposed to provide you with special ed services that your child would require. That usually takes quite a fight to actually get those services. So you might also want to look at your insurance and your doctor. And do you guys have any other points to share on that one? Nope.
No.
Okay. All right. Here we have one, PSA versus PSP. Is PSP essentially a micro school? Multiple kids, location can be a home facility to host the school. PSA, this means only one teacher, parent, hired teacher, and one student only. So a PSA is basically, just think of it as, well, okay, a PSA is actually the private school affidavit. That same form is filed by homeschool families who are claiming their home as a private school. And it's also filed by, say, Heritage Oak, the private school up the street from my house that there's hundreds of kids in. So it's the same form and we're looked at kind of the same. But because we are in our homes, the immunization requirements are not required for us in our homes, but they are for schools that are meeting. A PSP can be a couple of different things. A PSP can be like over by my house, there's a church that has a PSP and they offer classes 1 or 2 days a week. They have dances and all kinds of cool stuff for the kids, and they do keep the records for the student. A PSP can also be just an umbrella that all they do is file the affidavit and keep your records for you, but they're not actually doing any of the instruction, but you're a teacher under their school and you're never meeting with those other families in person. So there's multiple like models of PSPs. Did that make sense? Okay.
So I see a couple questions. I'll go ahead and answer.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, do charter schools fall under the vaccine mandates? The charter schools that have that offer that are not brick and mortar, that are built for homeschoolers, where the learning is happening at home for the majority of the learning, they do not require the vaccine. They will ask for a vaccine record, but it can be blank. You don't have to worry about that. Another question that I saw, aren't colleges—
Hang on, Heather, let me just say, so SB 277, which is the vaccine law that they'll probably put the COVID vaccine into come January, is excludes non-classroom based charter schools for now. So what you're going to look for is a non-classroom based charter school, and then you don't have to be fully vaccinated.
All right, the other question I was going to answer is, aren't colleges also subject to the same mandates and curriculum that we are running away from? Yes, they may. I mean, there are some good religious schools out there that might be different, but yeah, that's something for you to evaluate. I mean, it depends on the career that your child is going to. It is a hard decision as far as whether you even want your kids to go to college, I suppose. We need to start forming college pods, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So I just want to point out there's one group on Facebook called College Immunization Policy, and they have updated lists like every day, every other day. They're posting the schools that are still accepting, that are first of all still not requiring, mandating it, and also still accepting religious and medical and personal exemptions. So that might be a place you want to go look and see if your school is listed, or ask if anyone has any experience with your school. I know our school, one of our community colleges where I'm at in San Diego, they were like the last man standing. They hadn't been asking for it, but then I think they're going to start requiring. But as far as I know, they are accepting the different exemptions. And this particular school, it's a local one in San Diego, they accept students as young as 8, and my son enrolled when he was 13. So, and there's a bunch of homeschoolers that go that route. And I actually have a friend of mine whose son wants to be a mechanic, and he's taking in-person classes right now in an auto shop because he wants to get his license in mechanics and get the hands-on experience. So there are still some colleges that are providing that kind of freedom. You just got to look for them.
All right, another question is, homeschooling through a charter school where you pick the curriculum with the charter school, how do you find a charter school in your area? I have a whole list on my Homeschool Concierge website that breaks it down by county, so I can help you, or you can go to homeschoolconcierge.com and do a search for charter school and then find the whole page on that. And then my phone number is at the end of this presentation. You can also write that down and call me. What grade can a child enroll in a community college? I have seen very young children enrolling in community college. If you want to enroll them when they are quite young, the best thing to do is reach out to the dean of the department where you want to take the classes and talk to them about it. My middle schooler is taking community college classes at a community college that says it's only open to high schoolers. So you just have to call, ask questions, introduce yourself, introduce your children, and talk about which classes you want to take. Most of the schools around here, I believe it's middle school or high school, but some are saying high school only. All right. Who gives a diploma? And then under the different ways of homeschooling. So with a private school affidavit that you file yourself, you are giving your child the diploma. With a PSP, the PSP will provide you with the diploma. Before joining the PSP, you might want to make sure, ask some questions. If being accredited is important to you for that diploma, then you might want to make sure that the PSP you're joining is an accredited PSP and that their diploma is accredited. Some are not and some are. The credentialed teacher kind of loophole, there's no specification that I know about that says who would provide your child with a diploma. I think you would have to keep the records and show portfolio to get that child into college. Enroll by a public charter school where parents selects the curriculum. That would be the public charter school. That's the same as graduating from a public high school. You would be graduating from a public charter school, which is the same thing. So you would get an accredited public diploma, public school diploma. And then independent study from a district or a county office of ed is the same thing. It's a public school. So it would be an accredited public school diploma. The next one is how to apply to college. You need, like with your transcript, are homeschool kids able to take the SAT and the PSAT, an acceptable form of diploma? Someone else want to take one of these? Do you want to, Heather?
Sure. Yeah, so if you do the PSA, the private school affidavit, if you're with the PSP, they do your transcript. If you're with the charter school or independent study, they do the transcripts. But if you're PSA, if you're independent, you make the transcript. But if you're non-traditional, I mean, the colleges are going to recognize the fact that this kid was homeschooled and that the transcript is not as legitimate, if you want to say, as if as compared to one that was coming from a charter school. So you can really put anything you want on that transcript, and you can make it look as good as you want it to. You can, I would recommend also showing, any pet projects that your child's been into, just go ahead and put them on there. And a lot of times the colleges don't rely as heavily on the transcript from a non-accredited school, then they will rely more heavily on the SAT and the ACT tests. So yes, homeschoolers can take those tests. And as far as being an acceptable form of diploma, I've graduated 4 kids from my own little tiny private school, actually 5 technically, and never once printed a diploma. I just plain said, you are now graduated. None of my kids wanted to go through a ceremony or anything. So I never had a reason to make a diploma certificate. And so there's no set format. I mean, it can be invisible, because when they apply to college or jobs or whatever, they don't have to show a certificate. They just plain check the box or whatever, saying that they graduated. So you don't have to worry about what the diploma actually looks like.
Now, one other thing I think to point out about the SAT. So usually high school seniors, high school juniors take the SAT to go into university, but homeschoolers often start college younger, way younger, 9th grade, 10th grade, whatever. So by the time they graduate high school, they've most likely completed an associate or halfway the first 2 years of college. So they are now going to be a transfer student to the university, which would not require a high school diploma, paper, a high school transcript, and SAT, because they're going to transfer as a college student, a college junior, and all they need is their college transcript to go. So all of it becomes kind of a moot point if you're going to go to college first and transfer as a student.
Totally. So the next one is, so to homeschool, you have to file a private school affidavit. So yes, if you want to homeschool privately, claim your home as a private school and be in charge of educating your own children, then you would have to file the private school affidavit. You wouldn't file that until after you've pulled your children out of any other school that they might be currently enrolled in, a public school, a charter school, another private school. You file that after you pull them out.
Here's a question somebody asked. So instead of taking AP classes, the child will take community college courses. You can absolutely do that. It's essentially they get college credit for the classes they take at community college. And so that's equivalent of an AP.
All right, here's one. If I wanted to start my kids at homeschool in the fall, when do I need to file the PSA? So I think it confuses people when the community talks about the filing period being between October 1st and October 15th. You would only file in that filing period if you knew prior to October 1st that you were going to be homeschooling, or if you were continuing from the year before. But say you decide to pull your kid out after the Thanksgiving break, you would then file that private school affidavit the day or the day after you pull your child out of their past school. So you can file it at any time if you're a new homeschooler filing the PSA, but if you're continuing your homeschool journey, you will file it between October 1st and October 15th, the same every year. Did that make sense, you guys? Okay. All right. Looking to present ideas to our current school. So curious if charter schools that have a separate homeschool section, do they receive the same amount of money for each child, or is it a lesser amount for the homeschool students? So school funding is kind of different from district to district, depending on, if it's a high income area where they have high property taxes. So there's a bunch of different things that make that up. But no, if it's one school, the amount would be the same. Now, a charter school, if it's a charter school within a district, it actually gets less money than the district is getting for their students, because when a charter school gets authorized, it has to pay oversight fees to its authorizer, which is a public school district, and it can pay them up to 3% of all the money they're bringing in per student. And also, something interesting I found out, when the legislature passed SB 98 during COVID, which stopped the funding that typically follows our children from one public school to another public school, I figured out that actually, if your child is enrolled in a public charter school, they already have less money following them than a child who's in a district school. So like I live in the Placentia Yorba Linda School District. If my kids don't go to Placentia Yorba Linda School District, Placentia Yorba Linda School District actually still gets 10% of their money above their head. And then the charter school gets what's ever left of that, but then the charter school has to pay its oversight authorizer. So that's a very complicated question, Julie. And also please know that our state legislature has also placed a moratorium on any new non-classroom based charter schools. So you can't start a new charter school to serve homeschoolers. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but California cut off funding for homeschoolers. So California doesn't provide any funding for like private homeschoolers. If you're privately homeschooling or you're with a PSP, you're paying everything for that out of pocket yourself. So if you're forming a pod and you want parents to pay to be coming to your pod, then they will have to pay out of pocket. The only families that have access to any state funding is if they're with a public non-classroom based charter school, in which case the school allots an amount of money, somewhere between like 800 to maybe 3,000. They don't give the parents that money. It's actually in like an ordering system at the school, and there's an approved vendor list. And then the parent works with the teacher to decide what the student is going to go like learn that year. And then the parent goes in and puts in requests for the curriculum that they want and the activities that they want. Then the teacher reviews the requests, and then the teacher would approve it or go back to the parent with questions. And then once it's approved by the teacher, then an admin at the school reviews it and approves it. So when they're looking at it, they're making sure that it's not religious and that it's grade level appropriate and that it's, something that they talked about the child studying that year. And then the school purchases those items and then they're given to the family to use while the student is enrolled in that school. And if it's something like a workbook that the student writes in, then it's consumed and then it's discarded. If it's something that another family can use or a non-consumable, then the family has to give it back when they're done with it or when they withdraw from the school. So there's been a lot of legislation passed in the last 3 years kind of against our public charter schools that serve homeschool families. So I wouldn't be surprised if they cut funding off for homeschool charter schools, but so far they have not done that yet.
Here's a question that says, do you see kids that belong to virtual charter schools also become members of pods of homeschool families for socialization or other learning opportunities? Yes, actually, if you're with a charter school, you're still going to have time that you can spend, if you want to do a park day with families, with other families, or if, when you refer to pods, I'm guessing you mean like getting together for learning experiences. A lot of these charter schools actually offer some in-person classes that your children can attend with other kids. Also, as Windi described, the funds that are available to families with these charter schools, those schools can also pay for kids to attend programs like Maria's and my own, where they can go 1 or 2 days a week for, to have classes with other kids. So, and then again, if you just wanted to form it with a group of, a couple other moms and their kids all together, and you could totally do that. Absolutely.
All right, so there's another question. How long does it take for the state to approve a PSA application or a PSP if you're forming a PSP? And they actually don't approve it. Once you file it, you're good to go. You'll get a confirmation email and you'll save that as your records, and you're a private school. So you don't need to wait for anyone to approve you.
And you know what? Someone had a question. Does a PSA mean only one student? And it doesn't. No. It's all the students in the family, right? All the children in the family or the household.
Yeah, and that's also because remember, this private school affidavit form is the same form that the private school up the street from you, that's a brick and mortar building with hundreds or thousands of children attending it, they fill out the same form. So you would put all of your kids on that. You don't list your children's name. It's literally just a tick mark. 1 if I have 1 3rd grader, 1 if I have 1 5th grader. So that's all that is. And also know that if you're a private homeschooler with fewer than 6 children enrolled in your private school, you don't show up on the private school public directory. So your information is kept private that way. Another one is the funding for a child in special education. Does it go to the PSA or does the school keep it? So again, if you're filing a PSA or you're enrolled in a PSP, you're in a private school, and private schools are not funded by the state or the federal government to provide special ed services. So you would have to either go back to your home district, who then becomes responsible for your special ed services if you've enrolled your child in a private school, or your medical insurance and your own doctor.
Here's a question somebody asked: how do you get curriculum? What is the cost? So if you're with a charter school, they will provide the curriculum to you and it costs nothing out of pocket. If you're doing a private school affidavit, then there is way too much curriculum. If you just start searching for curriculum, you're going to be overwhelmed by the choices. And it could cost anywhere from $0 to hundreds of dollars a year, depending on the type of curriculum that you use. I personally, with my kids, I actually never bought curriculum, but we used the library, we used the internet, we used just resources that we had available to us, and we used real books and just wrote, and we didn't really actually get invested in curriculum. A lot of people will buy curriculum and not use it, so it's kind of a risky venture there.
And I actually on my website have a whole huge long list of all bunch of free resources for homeschoolers. So if you go to homeschoolconcierge.com, you can find that list. And if you can't find it, just message me through the website and I will give you the link. Here's one. Would my daughter have to file her own PSA if I wanted to teach my grandchildren? So yes, your daughter can file the private school affidavit and you're free to help educate those children because they're your grandchildren. If she didn't want to file it and you wanted to take that responsibility, you could file it. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Well, like how we were talking about earlier, a lot of homeschool parents outsource a lot of things. If I had, a mom who was a French teacher, I would ask her to teach my kids French, things like that. So we outsource all kinds of things. If other family members want to help, that's totally acceptable. And a lot of people do it.
Yeah. Friends, family. Will this be available to watch later? So yes, we are creating a recording. I hope. I don't see the recording thing up here anymore, but yes, you see it? Okay, good. So we can download it and then send it out to the participants. That would be fine.
Here's a good question. Under PSA, do I say full-time or part-time to avoid vaccine mandate? Well, technically, if you're a part-time school, you're not a school. It's not a legal option for your child to attend. So because they need to be in a full-time school. However, if it's only your children on your affidavit, they're not in a classroom setting with other kids 5 days a week, then you are not under the vaccine mandate and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So someone asked a similar question. Are PSPs compelled to comply with the vaccine mandate? So a PSP, if they're meeting in person for classes more than like full-time or more than part-time, then yes, they would be required because they're then a full-time private school that's meeting in person. If you're a PSP that's simply an umbrella school filing the PSA and keeping records for families and you're not meeting in person, then you would not be required to do the vaccines. All right. Here's another one. Do any of the panelists offer services to help parents fill out the form to start a pod or a PSA? I think we all do. So I offer consulting services on homeschoolconcierge.com, school choice and homeschooling, and can help file a PSA or any of those, and assist in finding the vendors to set the homeschool curriculum. So yes, we all do that. Heather, you want to talk about what you do too?
Absolutely. So I've been running Celebration Education since 2006, basically various learning groups throughout Southern California. But then this year I put together learningoutsidethebox.com, where for the intention of helping people start their own learning groups. It could be anywhere from 2 days a week to 5 days a week. And we provide curriculum and resources for the now new small business. And so that's available, but even you can join with a free membership to get on the map, because I know one of the biggest questions that people ask me is, how do I find other people? So, you know, everyone should get on the map. If you're looking to connect with other people, go ahead and get a free membership, and then you'll show up on the map. And then if anybody is around you that's wanting the same or similar thing, they can reach out to you. So be sure to go ahead and go and get a free membership there. And if you have questions about starting your own learning group, I love helping people do that, and you know, get you hooked up with resources as well.
Maria?
Yeah, so I'm in San Diego. We currently have 15 learning pods around the county, from Otay Lakes all the way up to Escondido. And that's what we've been doing this whole time. Even before all this COVID stuff, we were already doing pods. Really, learning pods is just a new term for it, but we've been doing it for like 10 years, you know? Yeah. So so what we do is we connect homeschoolers with different educators around the community and build that bridge. So instead of going, you know, to a regular school to get all your subjects, you would go to different places around the community and learn science and martial arts and dance and art and all these other things people want to do. So you can definitely call me, email me if you have an area, if you have a group of families who want to start a learning pod in your area, or if you have a particular interest. For example, you know, you only want 2 or 3 subjects taught because you guys are going to do the rest. We can connect you with educators all around the county. There's all kinds of teachers who are either retiring early or leaving for their own personal reasons, you know, the public school system. And it's about connecting those great educators with the families who are looking for that extra support. We also offer curriculum. I have an entire garage full of books and curriculum that anyone can always go, you know, get the resources they need. We also use a website called teacherfilebox.com. I really like Evan Moore books. I'm not like recommending it. I don't get paid or anything to, but we've used Evan Moore books often. And teacherfilebox.com, it's like $99 a year, and you get curriculum for like K through 8 on there, all kinds of different subjects. So there's all kinds of resources, and you know, my number's on here, my email, and you can connect, especially if you're in the San Diego area, the whole county. I'm available to help.
So Jenny asked, what is considered part-time? 3 days a week, how many hours a day? There's like a legal definition for it. I believe is it less than 80% of the time? So
I think it has to be less than 15 hours a week of in person. That's what I remember a few years ago that it was.
Oh, really? Okay.
It may be different by now, but that's what I remember it was, that the charter schools would tell us, as long as kids are in your program less than 15 hours a week, then they don't have to follow all these different.
Yeah, that's to be a vendor for a charter school, but the definition of what like a non-classroom based or a independent study, it was a little bit higher than that, but you just want to be careful. I think that the 2 days a week for 3 or 4 hours is a good thing to try and stick to, because anything more than that, someone might question, you know, you're a private school and the kids are meeting. Even our non-classroom based charter schools that have learning centers where the kids maybe come to meet even just 1 day a week, they actually make those students turn in a fully completed immunization card. So, yeah,
2 days a week is the magic number.
Yeah, exactly.
I think so. Here's a question. Said, I heard someone say you can pull your child out, but not unenroll right away. Or do you need to do file the PSA first before you pull them out? Well, so if you're going to pull them out, I wouldn't pull them out and not unenroll them. I would just do it. You know, if you're going to do it, do it. Also, you don't need to file the PSA before you pull them out, but essentially when you pull them out. Do you want to be able to put your kids right into a school, but they're legally, they're not allowed to be enrolled in more than one school at a time. So you don't file in advance. Like if you're trying to hit the October 15th deadline, don't do it. Just wait until you pull your kids out of school, file it at that time.
Yeah, that's not a deadline for new homeschoolers. That's a deadline for people that have been homeschooling in the past to file by the 15th. You can file anytime between now and June. Follow up to the grandchildren issue. If I file the PSA and teach my grandchildren who don't live with me at my house, does the vax mandate apply, or should my daughter file so I can teach at my house? You can do that either way, whichever one of you wants to file the PSA and keep the records, you would, one of you would do it. And it doesn't matter whose house they're being taught at. Your daughter may then also take them to a friend's house to do some kind of co-op or something. And so they can be educated anywhere in the world. It's just you and your granddaughter, or you and your daughter, need to decide who's going to be responsible for those records and for filing the private school affidavit. Do we have educators in Northern California who are willing to teach in pods? I think it'd be good to join Heather's map and get on. I also have a huge list on my website of different social media groups, Facebook groups. So if you're in Northern California and you want to go on there, and when you join these groups, you can just literally post in there, I'm in this county and I'm looking for teachers for pods, or I'm looking for a group to join, and people will chime in and tell you what's available if they have room in their group and that kind of stuff. So Heather, did you have anything to add for Northern California area?
No, that's it. That'll do.
Right. Okay. All right. I think that's all of them in the question and answer. You were going through the chat, right?
I was, and I pretty much answered. I think some of them were redundant. I don't think they were asking for clarification. So I think we hit it all right on time.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the slides again so you can get everyone's contact information. Hopefully you can still see them. So here's me, Homeschool Concierge, and also California Homeschool Network. And then here's my actual cell phone number. If you need something, you can call me or text me. At Homeschool Concierge, we offer consulting if you need consulting, and that's where kind of all those lists of free things and resources are. And then California Homeschool Network also has a lot of help. What happened? Okay, there, I got back. Okay, Maria. This is you.
Yes, this is, that's our website, soaringmindsedu.com. It also has a list of local charter schools in San Diego who that are non-classroom based charters. So on the enrollment tab, you'll see the ones.
Oh, you're muted, Maria.
Muted.
Yeah, sorry. And then there's our email and my cell phone, just in case.
Okay. And Heather.
Okay, so yeah, I've been running Celebration Education since 2006, and right now we have classes in Redlands, and our Orange County classes are currently in Santa Ana for one more week, and then we're moving to Lake Forest. And so you're welcome to join our classes at either of those locations. And like I said, you can join if you're outside of our area and you want to start your own group. You can go to learningoutsidethebox.com and you can get some resources there. And if you want to reach out to me, you can email me or call me. This is my phone number, and I'm happy to talk and happy to help you whatever you need to get started. I just want to help more and more people have more and more options for educating their children. I don't want you guys to be stuck. So.
Right. I didn't hear about anything about IEP. Can you answer that really quick?
Where?
I think we did.
Somebody
I didn't hear any.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I didn't hear anything about the IEP.
okay. So when you pull your children out of a public school, the IEP money doesn't follow them. That's special ed services are only provided through schools, through public schools. So if you are filing the private school affidavit or joining a PSP that's going to keep your records for you, you would have to go back to your home district and see what kind of services they can offer you, because technically you fall under their jurisdiction living within their school boundaries. Or you can talk to your doctor and see what you can possibly get through your insurance, but those would be your two options. Also, a lot of families find that when they pull their children out of the classroom, they don't need as many services and they can accommodate for them themselves at home. So you would have to kind of just see how it goes. All right, it looks like we have another question and answer. Where will this be posted? We will email it, and I don't know, Celeste, do you know where else it can live?
Yeah, I think we're gonna put it on parentunion.org on the
Okay.
website. And then I'll also post it on the social media on the parentunion.org or Parent Union Facebook page as well.
Yes. So, and to join the parent union, go to parentunion.org and join the parent union.
Great.
I think we got all the questions, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks,
And we'll
Maria.
have-
Go back
Thank
to your
you, everyone.
party.
Thank you guys.
It's over. All the kids are coming back in the car now.
Oh, there's kids.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Bye, bye.
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 Bye.